Hi everybody, in this video I wanted to talk about the issue of 2D art versus 3D art. It's a video that I've wanted to make for years, and it's been on my mind a lot, and I've struggled with it a lot, and I see people talking about various things in the industry, like remember Shadi Safadi talking a lot about 3D and its role. Obviously 3D has become more important in the industry, and there's this big emphasis. Everything that you see is 3D. With the emergence of AI, I've actually been starting to think, well, if AI is 2D, and we can talk, you can talk about the 3D future of AI, but I don't think it's worth talking about at this stage. But let's say AI being 2D, oh well, my thought was combat that with 3D. So the issue is that we see a lot of 3D on ArtStation, and we think that that's all there is. And there's a lot of artists coming up today who are just going solely the route of 3D. My experience is that the vast majority of clients don't really want that, and that is counter to everything that you're going to hear, especially from the likes of Shadi Safadi, who, with his 1 pixel brush stuff, which is really successful, obviously. And I've met Shadi a few times, and he's a great guy and everything. And so I'm not trying to, say that he's wrong. But I remember coming up in the industry and just thinking, well, should I just forget about 2D because my 2D skills weren't very strong and my confidence wasn't very strong. So I was thinking, maybe should I just go all in on 3D, or do I do some of my fundamentals? And I kept on thinking, yeah, but I could do that in 3D is the problem. I could have trees, I could have rocks. All of the landscape stuff is pretty much taken care of in 3D. And then I started thinking, well, I'm not very good at characters, so maybe I'll just build characters in 3D and learn that workflow. And it built up, and I just decided to go complete all in on 3D. But every step of the way, when client work would come in, I would find myself struggling because 2D was the solution, and they didn't like the 3D look. And it happened so consistently that I was just so confused. Like, why is everybody talking about the future is 3D when I'm finding that clients just don't want it, And the reason why I'm bringing this video up now, finally, after years of struggling, like literally, like back in 2015, 2016, I was having these struggles, is because now we're at the crash of concept art. The games industry is on its knees, and or at least the employees are on their knees. I don't know if the industry is, and I've got a whole story that I'd like to go into another time about how I came to find my success, and then at the top of the roller coaster, and now I'm on my way down. Long story short, I hit the peak of the massive surge of the games industry and concept art industry and all that kind of stuff, which was in 2021 to 22. It crashed in sometime mid-2023. We're now at the end of 2023, and my contract expired in October of 2023, and I've not been able to find work since. And this is why I'm making this video now, is I did get 2 little jobs that would have just kept me going if they'd have fulfilled their potential. So, the client might say, we need this much work, but it could potentially go that far and would have kept me going throughout some of this dry period. But in the 2 jobs that I've had in this desperate time where I'm just desperate for getting work in, both let me go because my work was not 2D enough. And it's at the point now where I have to sit down and really rethink a lot of things as I go into 2024 without an income. And so I wanted to make you guys aware of what the pitfalls are and how to choose what medium to go forward. like I remember in the last big contract that I did, I worked with 3 other concept artists. We all did 3D only. There was, obviously there's 2D components. I'm not saying that every scene was an entire 3D render. There would have been maybe some sky thrown in, a little bit of texture work done if there was rocks, maybe a bit of photo texture in the rocks kind of thing. But nothing that was hand-drawn, no sketches. I'm trying to really think. And then even early on in the project, I was brought in to do some character work, which I've never done before. And I photo bashed that, so kind of 2D. But then they got an actual character artist in who took over the job, and he was pure 2D, and it was great stuff that he did. So the reason why 2D is needed, or when it's needed the most, is in the sketching phase, which is kind of hard to do in 3D. You can block in 3D, but the sort of culture in ArtStation has been lately to have a generic temple in the sand. You'll notice this everywhere, and it makes it look like that those pieces are maybe getting successful and they're getting likes, and it makes it look like that's all you need to do as a concept artist is kit bash a temple, and you can be a concept artist. But that is never how it works. I think luckily in my last contract that I had, it was a fair bit of that, to be fair. But that was a bit of a unicorn. Everything else is like, we need a building, we need a specific thing, and you can't just download some stuff from Sketchfab, throw it together, and call that an idea. There's some things that are just way too specific. And they need a 2D process. And even when I was working for Terraform in previous jobs, there would come a time in those in those projects where it was like, right, we need to ideate this, and I would be going again into the comfort zone 3D, and they'd be like, no, please just do it in 2D, and it'd be like, oh god. So eventually I had to do some of that. But for a lot of us these days, the modern concept artist is 2D shy. It seems like it's a dying art or something like that because of how much 3D can do, how many add-ons there are for Blender. Blender's free now. 5 years ago, I think I was using 3D Studio Max. A lot of people were using 3D Studio Max and V-Ray. Now 3D software is free. We have cheap add-ons. So it's really being pushed. You've got Quixel Megascans, which 5 years ago wasn't massively a thing. So now you can get pretty much all of your terrains and stuff like that for super cheap or free. And it makes doing 2D seem like almost pointless. But it, like I say, it's cost me not just these 2 jobs, but many jobs in the past where my lack of 2D skills made the client just drop me, or maybe they would have worked with me again but didn't, and we just kind of crawled through the project and got to the end, and I really needed to have done more sketching and more 2D work. A lot of them didn't like the look of 3D, and the problem with 3D is it just seems to just solve everything, but in a way that you don't want things solved, And you could take the 3D render, of course, and paint over it, maybe. But there's only so much you can sort of do with that for specifically designed things. So concept art is various things, isn't it? It's a nice finished landscape painting, maybe, or something that looks pretty like an illustration, but a lot of it is the actual design of a vehicle or a character or a building, and some of these designs can be very crazy and require a lot of ideation, and sometimes the client doesn't know what they're doing, which is what happened in my last project, where the client just was struggling to figure out what they wanted, and what they needed was really like a dozen 2D side-on views, and and I've seen that in the past. I've been able to do it in the past, but I didn't really come up with that as a solution, and then it was too late and they dropped me. And so I guess, and also the other thing about 3D is it's extremely slow at times. You know, you may well have a scene that if the client wants different angles, they can have those different angles. But when I'm working in 3D, I am finding that, you know, I'm spending hours downloading assets first, unzipping them, bringing them into the scene, making sure the textures are okay, then lighting everything, and it can really be time consuming. And yeah, so I think one of the other things I wanted to talk about was AI. I think I mentioned it previously, but AI being 2D, we sort of find ourselves thinking, well, you know, what will AI replace my 2D-ness? You know, will it replace my 2D skills? And I am at this stage. Recently, I was saying no, 2D is dead because AI can do it all, and I decided to, and I think we should all sort of do this, even though it's unethical. Have a go at some AI, and I recently got into Midjourney to sort of generate some ideas, just for reference gathering, and it's really crap. It really is. I was surprised. Like, you could spend hours. Say there's an image that you want to make, and you think, okay, it's got these 3 elements in it. For a personal project, I was like trying out, see if it would come up with some compositions and ideas, whatever, for a woodland scene with some little characters in, and it just, there's so many things that it can't get right. You'll say, I want this, maybe this character to be blue, and all they do is make a normal character, but they shine a blue, it shines a blue light somewhere. You provide it with some reference, and you say, I want it changed in this many ways, and all it does is repeat the reference and maybe give you 10% of what your little prompt was. And, you know, Midjourney's been around for a couple of years now. It's supposed to be like this career-ending thing, and it's just terrible. Especially now for illustration, maybe if you had a client that was like, they did them, say they wrote a book and they just wanted to quickly get a cover, and they were satisfied with what Midjourney gave them as opposed to what their actual idea was. Maybe that's how jobs could be lost. But you're talking low-end illustration jobs where the client's got $300 and they just want a generic scene of a thing, and maybe then they will go to Midjourney instead of you, the cheap artist. So in terms of 2D versus 3D, you could still invest in your 2D skills and beat Midjourney, because you will be able to deliver the specific thing that the client wants with the specific colors and the specific composition, where Midjourney won't. And I fail to see how Midjourney is going to take jobs until you can specifically say, I want this here, that there, that color there, in which case it will be a completely different piece of software where you'll have to draw in what you want. And even then, I'm sure it's going to be still only going to get a small percentage of what the client wants. So currently it's not taking jobs, and currently it's not going to remove your necessity for 2D. So I guess in short, practice and polish those 2D skills. Don't think that 3D is the only way to do things. Don't just rely on it. Don't rely on the tools. Keep the 2D working. I'm going to be spending some time now getting back into 2D. The other thing is about 2D that's tricky is, you know, if you spend some time away from it, you can lose a lot of your skills and knowledge. It's almost like programming. When you learn programming, you have to build up and keep at it. And if you were to go away, you'd be really struggling to get back. So it's hard. It requires discipline, and above all, it requires you to be comfortable with sucking and to be comfortable with not liking the stuff that you're doing, thinking that it's shit, thinking that you're shit, thinking that you failed. But one key thing, and this is a whole like video in and of itself, I was talking to a friend of mine about the concept of mastery, getting good at skills. And he's a very, very intelligent guy who thinks a lot about these things. And he was saying that he would sometimes teach people to play the guitar, and he could tell the ones who wouldn't do very well. And he was also an archery teacher. And he said that the ones who wouldn't do very well, who were the ones who would try, like that, to give it their first try, say with this guitar or archery, and they would say, "No, you know what? I'm just not very good at this. Or the thing that I'm playing on the guitar sounds terrible. Oh God, I'm rubbish. I'll never be good at this." And they would never succeed. Versus the ones who were just trying it out and being completely comfortable with sucking. And that's tricky, because you have to ask yourself, how comfortable are you at producing a really garbage piece of art, for the sake of learning? I myself am extremely uncomfortable, and I think that's where it stems from. I feel like everything that I do has to be as close to perfect as possible, and if it's not, then I suck, and da-da-da, and there's a whole story that I come up with about how I shouldn't be successful and all that kind of stuff. So really be uncomfortable and be okay with it, and know that you are a work in progress, and you can't just spend a couple of days and go, "Oh, I suck, I best get back to 3D where I feel comfortable." Be okay with sucking is the thing. One of the best pieces of advice I ever heard, I'll close on this. If anybody knows who Dave Raposa is, the artist, I'm sure about half of you will know who he is and half of you won't, but he, for a few years ago, did some amazingly detailed, he's going back to doing the detailed illustration, but for a while he went back to doing something a little bit more simple. But he did these Ninja Turtles. He was famous for doing these Ninja Turtles illustrations that were amazingly detailed. His digital painting skills were incredible, and he became really successful. And I used to watch his live streams all the time, and they were so entertaining to watch. If you look him up on Twitch or whatever, Dave Raposa, some of the videos are hilarious. The stories that he and his friend Dan get up to are great. And so the live chat, somebody asked him just something really simple, to the point where I thought, well, it's almost like an insult to ask such a simple question to somebody who's so good at art. And they just said, and you can tell because he read it out loud, and he goes, he's reading the chat, and he goes, "How do you get good?" And I thought, that's just such a stupid question. And he was the sort of person who would brush off stupid questions, and he actually went and answered it. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's going to answer it. So he goes, "How do you get good?" And he goes, "You have to eat shit 10,000 times." And to this day, that is one of the best pieces of advice, as crude and as simple as it is. When you really look at what that means and what he means by that, you have to just be able to eat shit 10,000 times and just keep going. And that's what the 2D game is. 3D art is fairly simple, and I think it's getting to the stage now where we're flooded with artists who can do it and get a lot of attention on Instagram. ArtStation. And we think that ArtStation is the benchmark, and because that's where the industry is, and it sort of is, I guess. If you do well on ArtStation, you'll get jobs. But, and this is what I will finally end on, ArtStation and 3D, and this is what the situation that I'm in, can get you the jobs. The 3D portfolio piece can get you the jobs, but when you get the job, you will lose it if you can't sketch. So that's my thoughts, and just hit me up with comments. I'm interested to hear what you think about this, because it's a bit of an interesting discussion, I think. Okay, take care.